And now, Effective Communication with Phil Zeller, CEO, Dale Carnegie, Southwest Michigan.
Have you had one of those moments recently that just blew you away? I mean, you're in that situation and you're like, oh my gosh, really? It's like this aha moment and the light bulb comes on for you. And maybe it's not the light bulb you want to come on. But I was in this situation recently and I was with a really group of strong, incredible, dynamic group of leaders. People were absolutely, I love them. They're fantastic, amazing people. And I'm in this room with them and I got in a conversation about dealing with conflict. And how do we deal with conflict? And as we brought it up, the first thing that we had to do was, of course, assess how do we feel about conflict? How do you feel about conflict? When conflict arises, do you want to run and hide? Do you attack it head on? What do you do with conflict? And I was amazed by this group of people, and maybe it has something to do with society and culture these days and stuff. And people, the majority of the people in the group, I had them rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on how well they felt they were able to deal with conflict. And amazingly, these group of people that I absolutely love and dear to my heart to surprised me. The majority of them were a 5 or below. And I'm thinking to myself, this can't be. These people are incredible. They're dynamic. They're amazing. And as we got in a conversation, it was their own self-assessment. It wasn't my assessment of them. It was their assessment. And we got in a conversation about conflict. And why do people avoid conflict? And what's the challenge with conflict? And as we started to explore it and just have a legitimate conversation about it, I'm talking legitimate, genuine hearing people out, listening, being empathetic with where they're coming from and why they feel the way they feel. And we got deep into this topic. And the really cool thing about it was I realized that to the group, they saw me as, well, Phil, you're different. You seem to thrive on conflict. And I jokingly said, well, that's the benefit of being the youngest of 5 kids within 6 years growing up. You get conflict whether you like it or not. It's coming at you 24/7. Heck, it comes at you in the middle of the night. I remember I was always waking up in the middle of the night with some surprise of something in my bed, crazy stuff in my bed. It was my brother's way of joking with me in the middle of the night to keep me on my toes. So conflict was always coming to my house in my childhood growing up. So I just became accustomed to conflict going on. And some people are relating to me right now, and you're saying, yeah, I went through that same childhood, conflict on every turn, every moment of the day. Yeah. Well, a lot of people aren't going through that. A lot of people don't like conflict, or they avoid it, or they went through a conflicting situation and they've consciously made a choice to avoid it ever since, as if it was a phobia. Well, one of the challenges without dealing with conflict is we're probably not going to have discussions. And if we're not having discussions, relationships are going to fall apart. So I'm going to challenge you in this time, as we always do here on the show, is looking at a better way to deal with these situations. Realizing that conflict necessarily is not a bad thing. Conflict can be a very good thing. And here's why. Hear me out on this. Conflict is people sharing a difference of opinion. And this is where the idea of diplomacy comes in. And what we have to be is we have to be more diplomatic. Why? Because if everybody just agrees with us, we're going to become a very homogeneous society. And things are not going to change. They're always going to stay the same. Well, you all saw Footloose, right, with Kevin Bacon? Somebody's always going to challenge the status quo. And that's a classic movie of challenging the status quo and bringing happiness and joy to the people's hearts by doing so. And there's a lot of examples in history and in time and in life where people challenged the status quo and people took it as conflict. Well, the reality was it wasn't necessarily a bad conflict. It was probably a good discussion to have, and it was good to move a society forward. And we are often finding ourselves in these conversations with people right now with stuff that we don't understand. So our challenge is to seek understanding. So if somebody comes to you with a disagreement and somebody wants to challenge you, Mr. Carnegie, Dale Carnegie himself, would say, welcome criticism. Welcome the criticism. So what you learn to do is you welcome it. Why? Because you look at it as a learning opportunity. If this person has the confidence to criticize me, well, I'm going to politely challenge them to educate me. And let's see if they have the experience and the evidence to educate me so I can do the right thing. And if they do, they'll step up to the challenge. If they don't, they'll step off. It's a really cool thing. And, people just criticize just because they can criticize. They're doing that just because it is for themselves. It's not for you. But you can hold people accountable to their criticism of you by saying, it sounds like you've had a lot of experience here. Educate me. And when they do take the time to educate you, what you want to do is control your temper. Don't take it personally. Focus on what you can learn from the person. Ask questions from their experience and what evidence they have. Learn from their evidence. Learn from their experience. Listen to them. Listen deeply. Ask questions. Find points of agreement with them, which makes sense. And then say, you know what, I'm going to honestly take a look at that information, and I'm going to analyze that information. Is it all right if I get back with you and talk with you, because I want to learn more about this? And what you're going to find is you're going to hit conflict head on, you're going to diffuse it, and you're going to learn, and you'll never have a fear of conflict again. What a better life to live. Now go make it happen.